My kids watch Bluey. My kids watch Dragon Tales. My kids watch the Backyardigans, Sesame Street, all the good shit stuff. I mean, believe it, people here. I see you. I would hope so. I'm actually a cool, dope chick. You know that. You my number one. Juicy Jew. No, yours is dead, right? What is this? This nigga all looking at my window like he know what shit. No, both of y'all stuff is dead, right? Because y'all keep taking it off the charger. Don't play with me. Nah. Listen. Y'all hear them? Yeah, look. Both of their tablets is dead because they refuse to keep them on the charger. And now he getting upset. They getting upset because they know I'm not playing and I'm not putting it back on. See, that's what happens. When you... Now, let me see. Let me see. Today, we're going to get into women in history. Is it her story or is it his story? Let's go into what really happened in history. I'm yours truly, Diva Lyri, for the University, UNARepublic. We're going to talk about it today. His story or her story. Let's get into it today. I'm yours truly, Diva Lyri. Let's go. Yeah. Yeah. Alright, so we're going to do this thing today. We're going into the history of the woman. We're going back. We're We're going into some Egyptian history. We're going into some American history. Going into some Middle East history. Dealing with the woman today. What is going on with the woman? I want to welcome everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us today. As I try to keep my energy up here, dealing with this technology. All right. Halo. Forget my energy. I'm so through. I am so through with this technology. I need somebody who knows how to connect this mess so that we can start going live on both of these channels, because I am so through right now. I told you, dealing with this technology zaps my whole energy. Like, ugh. So anyway, we're getting into it. I'm live on YouTube, live on Facebook. No, I'm sorry. All right. 3, 2, 1. I'm live somewhere. Halo for those of you who can see me. All right. So I want to get into this thing today. I want to go into women in history. This is one of my favorite subjects. So hopefully this information is going to get me more excited about this, because right now, woo, I'm 38 hot, but I'm going to get on it today with the women in history. And let's talk about what women did in history and see if we can't bring some enlightenment to what's really going on with us. And I'm going to get into, as I always do, the spiritual side of this game, so that we can understand some things about what's going on. All right. So where I'm going to start with is with the Bible. All right. And I've spoken about this before, about the Bible, where it came from and how it came to be. So we're going to get into that today. When we're talking about the Bible, let's understand that the Bible is a canonized version of the scriptures. The Bible came to us in 325 AD by the Council of Nicaea. And back then, those were melanated folks doing these things. And what we need to understand is where these scriptures came from, because these scriptures were around long before 325 AD. And we need to understand who wrote them, how did they come to be. So when we go back in history, what we find is that these scriptures come from the women. The women wrote these scriptures. And one of the things that we're not told is that the original order on this planet was matriarchy. And we're talking about matriarchy, where you hear the syllable ma for mother. Matriarchy, not patriarchy, which is what we're in today. And so what we have to understand is that when we're going back into history, that everything comes from the woman. Everything. Yes, he comes from the woman. And what has happened is we've got to recognize that her stories have been rewritten. She has been written out of her own stories. This is important, because as we go back, we're going to see what the male did. And I'm talking about the melanated male. We're not talking about albions, your so-called white people. They're not white, but we're not talking about the albions. We're talking about what melanated folks did to the woman, and how she became subjugated, and how she was written out of her own stories. So it went from her story to his story, and we're going to go into what actually happened. So when we're looking at this, again, going back into the scriptures were written by women. Look up sibyls and oracles. All right. And I go back into this when we recognize that it was the woman who was running the societies. This planet was originally a matriarchal society. And we're going to go into some things. We're going to deal with some archaeology. We're going to deal with some legal documentation, some historical documentation. We're going to deal with some etymological documentation. And so these are things that you're going to be able to look up for yourself. And please do. Because I'm just here to give what the facts are. And then you can take those facts and create your own history or your own truth. All right. So getting into this, I want to go into getting on the Bible. Once again, I need to make it clear that it was women who owned everything. It was her who owned all of the knowledge, the power, all of the wealth, all of the land. Everything was in her name. All right. And she was the one who was controlling everything. Now, when we look at terms like Mason, understanding what the Masons are today, you break the syllables down and you get Ma for mother and son for offspring of the mother. Now, when men came into the game or on this planet, they were slaves. Let's make that clear. Now, I know a lot of people not going to like that. Oh, he was a helpmate. No. And all this stuff about the woman coming from the rib. That's why I start with the Bible, because scientifically that's not even possible. You can't get a female from a male. Everything that he has and is comes from her, the feminine. So when we really understand the facts about what's going on, we recognize that the male comes from the woman, and the Bible was where the male conquered the woman, because he originally was the slave. And then when she did certain energies to him, certain things that we're going to talk briefly about, she did dirt. That's why the woman is in the position that she is in today, because of the fact that she was the energies that she put out on him when she created the male, they were derogatory. And by law, when we go into universal law, those energies have to be returned. So what we're looking at is a situation where the woman is suffering energies that she put out on the male. But when we understand the true origin of this planet, everything comes from the woman, and it was the woman who was ruling everything. She was running the wars. When the war started, she was the one who controlled everything. So getting into this, we've gone into the scriptures and understanding that there's symbols and oracles that were writing this. Now, I had someone the other day when I talked about how men did not write the prophecies because they didn't have the ability to write the prophecies. When I got into that, someone says, yes, they did. They can write the prophecies. Well, let's understand this. They didn't write the prophecies because of the simple fact that it was, when you talk about prophecies, what you're talking about is law. And law deals with knowing what the universal laws and the rules of this dimension are. Well, if he wasn't taught those rules and those laws, then he can't write prophecies. But the women full well knew those prophecies. They full well knew what the laws are. And this is why you got the Masons that come in, because she was teaching him the esoteric knowledge of what's going on in this dimension. He didn't have that knowledge. When he came on the scene, he wasn't supposed to be able to read or write. He wasn't supposed to have knowledge of this information. He wasn't even supposed to have longevity of life. When you look at those things, then you understand why the woman is in the position she's in now. When you put out those energies, you have to reap them by law. And one of the things that when you learn universal laws, you understand what these syllables mean that we're using all the time that damn us without us even recognizing the spiritual aspect of what we're saying. So just right there, just letting you recognize that it was the woman who was running this thing. Y'all go do your research. Because I know I got some brothers in here who might not be aware of this. This is not to diss anybody. We got to tell the truth so we can understand why women are in the position that they are. And then when we start understanding the truth about what the laws are in this dimension, then we understand why we as melanated people are in the position that we're in. All right. So I want to go into some history dealing with the pharaohs, because one of the things we know is that when a people are conquered, the one who are the conquerors erase the history of those who are conquered. The same way melanated people were conquered, especially in what we know of as the Americas, and their history has been erased by another group that comes in and conquered them. And especially when we talk about the Moors, even when we're talking about the original people of the land, they were conquered and their history was erased. The true people of this land are not truly known, or it was not truly known. It's coming to light now, but we're going to get into that. I'm going to get into right now the women pharaohs of the Egyptian history. Now, first of all, let's talk about what the term pharaoh means. And again, y'all can go and look this up and do your research, because you're not going to just be able to do a quick Google search or Wikipedia search to find this information. You have to be willing to read and do some studying. But women, or pharaoh, means the house of the women, or the women's house. The women's house. That's what the term pharaoh means. And so now we've got this situation where all of these pharaohs are known to have ruled in Egypt. But then why is it that you don't know about the women pharaohs? Well, that's because their history was erased. And so what happens is that once the woman is conquered, then somebody goes back, the one who conquered her, males, and they erase her history. So you can see in, where they find information about the pharaohs and the Egyptian history, where on the walls, somebody has gone in and actually dug out the name of the women or the pharaohs, erased their history. So I'm going to go over some names of pharaohs that we are not taught about. Merenith. She's believed to be the first female pharaoh and queen in recorded history. Sebek-Neferu. She was known as the female Horus. All right. She came after Merenith. And so she was king of Upper and Lower Egypt. Hatshepsut. Some of y'all have heard this name. She became queen of Egypt at the age of 12 upon marrying her half-brother. Why did they do that? They do that to keep the riches in the family. She's the one with all the power. She's the one with all the wealth and the knowledge. But she marries, or they would marry their family to keep the wealth in the family. That's what happened with Isis. Isis is the one who had all the land, the power, the riches, the knowledge. And then she ends up marrying her brother, Osiris, to keep the wealth in the family. Nefertiti. All right. She's the one who's known to have started this monotheistic religion, where there's one God when there were many gods. And I'm going to go back to the Bible speaking of that. But that came around with Nefertiti. Cleopatra. She's supposedly the mother of Jesus. She raised armies once again, and she gained control of Egypt. Cleopatra. And so I want to go back to this because I spoke about how there's this monotheistic religion now, where everybody's going, oh, there's one God. Well, here's the issue, going back to the Bible, and I want to talk about this because, as I said, the Bible were stories written by women, and then she was written out of those stories. So when we look at going into this, because I want to go into the Jesus character and why I call it the Jesus character. A lot of the stories that are in the Bible today have been rewritten, redacted, changed around, switched up, because originally, when we talk about lineage, it came from the woman. When you look at the so-called Jews, the people who call themselves Jews today, one of the things about them, they'll say, if your mama ain't a Jew, you ain't a Jew. Meaning the lineage comes from your mother. But for whatever reason, when we get this Bible, it's all about this man begat these people and this man begat these people, when that's not. When you talk about, when you go back into the history of religion, and especially the melanated people who came from those 12 tribes, why are the Jews saying things like, if your mama ain't a Jew, you ain't a Jew? Because the lineage comes from the woman. But when you get this Bible, all of these things have been redacted and switched around, going back to the fact that it was really it was not a monotheistic, it was a polytheistic belief system. What does that mean? There were many gods. In the Bible, when you see the term God and Lord, those beings, there were many of them, and they had names. Most of the names were feminine. Most of the names of the gods that were in the Bible, they were feminine gods. And somebody switched the names. Somebody took the names out and then made everything just one God, Lord and God, while removing her from history, not showing the importance and the power that she had in history. I go back to this Jesus character. I call it a character because I'm not here to argue whether or not Jesus existed or not. I'm not here to argue, that Jesus was a melanated person, which we know the character comes from brown people. So there's no way it could have been an Albion. But the deal behind it is that this character couldn't have been a male. According to the research that I'm finding, and I'm just going to give you three things, all right, that are telling about who this character possibly could have been. Now, parthenogenesis. What is that? Parthenogenesis is a virgin birth. Go back and do some research on it. Parthen means asexual. O meanings of, Genesis meaning creation. Parthenogenesis is a creation of asexual birth. Now, what is the deal with that? Okay, one of the things we have to understand is when you're talking about Mary and her birth, there's the thought that, people want to believe, oh, well, yeah, the man come from the woman come from the man's rib. You want to believe that, but then you don't want to believe that parthenogenesis is real, which it is very much real. What is parthenogenesis? It is where a woman can give birth without a male. And then I want you all to go and look up the Parthenon. Parthenon. That was a place where women went to relearn or regain the knowledge or ability to procreate on their own. Women still have that ability, but if you eat garbage and you think garbage and you forget who you are, then it becomes a power and a tool that is lost to you, and you can no longer tap into it. Getting back to Jesus. If Jesus truly came from a asexual birth, which is what is told to us, or parthenogenesis, then Jesus can't be nothing but a female. Because what parthenogenesis is a woman cloning herself. She can't get nothing but a feminine entity from cloning or parthenogenesis. Next, they keep continuously throughout the Bible calling Jesus wisdom. If you go and look up the term wisdom, you will find that wisdom is a very feminine term. Feminine. Anybody considered wise or have wisdom, they was a feminine entity. Another thing that comes up in the Bible about the Jesus character is the covering of the head when he prayed. Wait a minute. They don't do that for males. They do that for females, women, when they pray, not men. There are so many other clues, but those are the three that I'm going to deal with today. I want to go also into Solomon's story, getting back to how books in the Bible were redacted, left out, taken out, changed around. Sexes were switched. Go and read Solomon's story. Solomon tells a story about how the Israelites were led out of Egypt. But Solomon says that was a female god that led the Israelites out of Egypt. Why would they leave Solomon's story out of the Bible? Solomon was there. Solomon is telling the story from what he knew. Somebody who was closer to the time. He says it was a feminine god, a female god. But the Bible says Moses. Once again, her story has been redacted. And we know of it as his story now. Okay. I'm just telling you what my research says, and then you can go and research it for yourself and understand why this information is so important. Going back to the Parthenon. Go and look up the Parthenon. Even today, when I talk about terms like parthenogenesis, especially men get upset about this information when all I'm doing is making sure women understand the powers that they have. Why would a man be so upset about a woman having that kind of power? Let's understand. If you think men get upset about knowing this today, imagine what they did back in the day when women could actually perform these techniques. When you go and look up the Parthenon, what you find is that it was taken over and shut down. This is in the AD by a religious organization. What I need for women especially to understand is that all religions are patriarchal. All religions are patriarchal. Pa meaning paternal, or as in male or father. All religions are patriarchal, and they were once again come about in the AD. Whereas the woman in the BC was the one who had created these scriptures. So you have the male who has taken over the woman, and he's rewritten her scriptures. And again, when we're looking at this thing, what we're finding is that these stories, they've been changed and redacted because he conquered her. The male conquered the woman. This is why I go into understanding what marriage is. Marriage is where she became his property. She became his property. She was the one now she became the slave because he conquered her. And women today make this institution of marriage like, oh, it's so prestigious. It's property. So I'm going to go into some etymology for those who have not seen my sessions when I speak on this so that we can make it clear. What is a husband? A husband is an owner or a manager of a farm animal. As his wife, he is her husband and she is his farm animal. What does family mean? Etymologically, family means slaves and servants. So when she gives birth to children, he has a family or a group of slaves and servants. This is not me making this up. I'm helping you to understand what has happened in history and what happened with the woman, what her plight was. She was conquered by the man. Why is this important? Because there are many powers that the woman has. And if she does not learn to control herself, as these powers turn on, she once again will destroy herself. It's not just melanated people coming back into power. It's women coming back into power. And as you come back into power, it's important to understand how you got here in the first place. Yes, melanated people once ruled. They did dirt. And I'm going to go into it a little bit today. Yes, women did once rule. They did dirt. And I'm going to go into it today. We go into understanding when we look in at what the Bible is. It is a copyrighted book. Now, let me make this clear. I have much respect for the Bible, much. It is a powerful tool and a powerful weapon, and I wield it. However, when there are people who say to me, the Bible is the perfect word of God, I have to make it clear it is absolutely not. The fact that there are left out books lets you know it's not perfect. The fact that it is copyrighted lets you know that it is somebody else's story. You cannot copyright a word of God because then it belongs to everybody. If it's copyrighted, then somebody has had to put their own spin on it such that they can tell this story, his story, in the way that he deems fit. Yeah. So I respect it, but let's be clear. It is not a perfect word of God, and there are lies in it. And I'm here to tell the facts about what they are. It's up to you to do your research so you can understand what they are. The book is to be respected because every law that you see and hear comes from the Bible. Comes from the Bible. However, somebody is using the book in an effort to keep people subjugated and having a lack of power. Okay? I'm here to make sure we understand what the book is and how to use it to uplift yourself. All right. Going into Americas, because I'm sure some people who are saying, oh, but Diva, there's no proof that women ruled everything and women ran. There's plenty of matriarchal societies that we can go and do some research on, and there are some still in existence to this day. But let's talk about the Americas and what went on here in the Americas. When we go and look at the Iroquois Confederacy. And once again, if you go to UNARepublic.com/docs, DOCS, you can find the Iroquois Confederacy there. And you can find plenty of the treaties there. You're welcome to download everything in that folder. So the Iroquois Confederacy, what is it? Because we have this whole idea and notion, once again, that women weren't running everything. When you look in the Iroquois Confederacy and you read it, what you understand clearly as the Iroquois Confederacy states is that women were the owners of all of the land. The Iroquois Confederacy is like a treaty, making it clear who owned the land. And when you read it, it becomes clear that a man could not own anything unless he came through the woman, because she was the owner of all of the land. This is in the Americas. But it wasn't just here. It was this entire planet. And the problem is that the woman has been overrun. The woman has been taken out of her power. The woman's stories have been rewritten to the point where she has been written out of her own stories. It was her story. And then he redacted her, and it became his story. I want to go into some other women who were powerful in history. And if you all have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them. I want to go into some things about women in the Americas and really on this planet that have been left out that we didn't know about. Some of y'all didn't know about Khalifa and the Khalifa tribe in the Americas, and the fact that it was an all-woman tribe. And California was named after Queen Khalifa of this all-woman tribe. And that's important because we got to understand that this all-woman tribe, when people ask about parthenogenesis and they say, well, what woman? Y'all know no woman that was able to produce without a man. Khalifa tribe. Also the Amazon women in South America. This was in the 1400s. So yeah, it is possible to procreate on your own. But again, if you have no knowledge of self, if you're eating garbage, if you're thinking garbage, then no, you're not going to be able to do it. And that's what the Parthenon was for. And why it was shut down by a religious order, Christian. It was shut down by that. It was taken over and shut down. And again, all religions are patriarchal. Why? To shut down the knowledge, so she doesn't have knowledge of self and the things that she has the ability to do. Other women in history, all right, the place that we know of as Europe, well, that comes from a woman, a melanated woman at that, Queen Europa. Why do we always hear about the Queen of England? Why we don't hear about the King of England? And remember, the Queen of England was melanated all the way up to the mid-1800s. All royalty was originally melanated people, by the way, just so we know. Queen Isabella of Spain. Why we don't know about, I mean, this is what I'm letting you know, that it was the women who owned everything. Again, going back to Isis. Isis was the one who had all of the wealth and the riches and the power. And then her brother, she married him, Osiris, to keep the wealth in the family. All right. Once again, you got to recognize, when we go back to the Bibles of antiquity, we find more feminine beings in in the Bible, especially when you look up the left out books and you start reading things like the Solomon story, where he's telling, wait a minute, these are feminine beings that are doing all of this work. But somebody wrote them out. Somebody has made the lineages come from the male, when the truth is, you got these so-called Jews that are giving you clues. Yeah, if your mama ain't a Jew, you ain't a Jew. That comes from, they're claiming to be from the Israelite tribe. Somebody's redacted her from her stories. Why did she lose it all? I want to go into that, and then I'm going to get out of here. If you all have any questions or comments, please put them in the box. Why did she lose it all? So when I speak about this, we have to go back to the universal laws. The male is a creation. And let us be clear, this is not a diss. This is science. This is information that is not shared to us. The male is a creation. When we're talking about the Y chromosome, the Y chromosome is a genetically modified chromosome, because Mother Nature doesn't create anything male. Everything comes from the feminine. He is a female. This is what we're not told. Now, with that being said, when this creation comes about, and when I'm talking about she, I'm talking about beings that had a higher frequency than what we have as humans. Because everybody just thinks, oh, the humans were the first thing on the planet. There was other beings here. And they had more knowledge of what's going on. And some people would call them the Anunnaki. But when the male was being created, it's clear that he was a slave. He didn't have rights to knowledge. The same way the woman was treated, where she's not supposed to be able to read and write and all this in certain societies, that's because that was an energy being returned to her. So you have women who created this being, and they didn't create it for an upstanding purpose. It was to be a slave. If you all go back and read the Book of Enki, or the story about the Anunnaki and who they were and what they did, they had full knowledge of these laws. I wouldn't say full knowledge, because they did some ill things. I won't go into that in this session. But basically, if you go back and read it, you'll recognize that they needed to create a slave, because there were things that they couldn't do on this planet, and they needed somebody else to be able to help them do it. And in creating these slaves, one of the so-called gods, or Anunnaki, made the statement that, hey, we're not supposed to be creating slaves. That goes against the laws. Yeah. And when you understand who the male was, and as a creation, what his being is, you understand that somebody created him. And when they created him for a purpose, and then he had to return the energy to the creator, the one that created him. And so in doing that, you can see why now she becomes a sex slave to him. She becomes subjugated by him. By universal laws, when you put out an energy, it must return to you tenfold, and then some. So she's reaping an energy that she put out on the male. And so the more we recognize the laws and understand the history and what actually went on, the better we're able to act in accordance with the law, so that we don't return back to this position where we are now. Everything switches. Everything, what goes around comes around. When a group of entities or beings put out an energy, it must be returned to them. And so that's what you're seeing now. A lot of beings are losing power that they used to have that nobody ever would have thought they would lose. All right, the so-called people who were running what we know as the government, which is not a government, they're losing their power. So-called Albions that were on top, causing all this hell to people, they're losing their power. And women are starting to rise. They are regaining their power. And as we regain it, once again, we want to recognize how we got here in the first place so that we don't return. All right, I'm going to see if I have any comments or questions. I want to thank you all for joining. Please feel free to like and share. I hope you got something from this information. To my brothers, I love you. I hope you're not upset with me. I'm just putting out what the facts are. None of this is against you. We get to the top by walking hand in hand and showing love to each other. So I want to make that clear. Let me put my spectacles on. Larry says, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. Thank you, Larry Washington. Sunset Beach in the house. Thank you for sharing. Kid Red, and it's a good song and a good vibe. Cadence says, what is this? All right. I hope you kept listening and watching so that you could find out what this is. I'm going to get out of here. I'm yours truly, Diva Lyri. I'm going to get this stuff fixed because it just, let me say this. If I have somebody who has an expertise and knows how to run online systems and linking up stuff, I need you. I need you because I can't deal with this. I like to do what I do, and that's it. I don't like my energy to be zapped before I'm trying to do my session. So if you know it, and hit me up in the inbox so we can get this done. TikTok, thank you. I love you. YouTube, I hope you all were able to see this. If not, I don't know. I'm out. Let me do this before I get out of here. And I want to say thank you again. You all can find us on YouTube at UNARepublic, and I encourage you to go over there. What we do is we repost our pre-recorded videos if we can't get them live. And YouTube, we go live Sunday, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We hope to see you next time. I'm out. Diva Lyri. Love you. Peace. Bye.